Hello there, it's Sarah from Paper Lovely. Thanks for joining me today. I'm going to be working with the Simon Says Stamp April 2018 card kit. Here I'm going to give you a quick look at what was included. So for card number 1, I took one of the white cardstocks that came in the kit and just cut that into quarters. I'm working on top of that here using my Distress Oxide inks with the butterfly stencil. I was really excited to try out this new brush. I had seen the videos of it from Creativation and really wanted to get my hands on some of them, so I was excited to have this to try. I thought it covered really well. I think probably the more you use it, the easier it's going to be. I don't know that I'll switch from my sponges just because I love them so much. However, what I think it does have going for it is it's much less messy. I usually end up with ink all over my fingers when I go to take the sponges off of the blending tools, so if that's something that bothers you, I think the brush is probably a really great option. I'd love to know what you guys think though, so if you got the kit and gave the brush a try, let me know which you prefer in the comments below. So the colors I'm using today are Abandoned Coral, Wild Honey, Squeezed Lemonade, Twisted Citron, Mermaid Lagoon, and Seedless Preserves. So now that my panel is finished, I'm going to take that sentiment, thinking of you, and I did purposely place this off to the side so that I would have enough room to fit that in between those butterflies. So I'm stamping that using my Intense Black ink, and then I'm going to trim this down to 4 by 5 1/4. Then I'll go ahead and use my ATG gun to attach it to the top of my card base. Then for the inside, I'm going to go with the sentiment Keep Smiling. Again, I'm stamping this with Intense Black ink. And then I went and pulled in one of the smaller sentiments that says You Can Do It, and I'll again stamp that with the same black ink. And then to finish that off, I added one of the solid butterflies, and I'm going to stamp that using the Seedless Preserves Distress Oxide. I'll go ahead and place that on the inside of the card base. And that will complete card number 1. So for card number 2, I'm doing lots of little butterflies. What I did here was I took one stripe from each of the papers that was in the kit. I just cut off 1 inch of each paper. And then I took both of these smaller solid butterflies, and I'm stamping 6 of those along the back using Intense Black ink. I'm going to do that for each of those stripes, and then I took those to my Scan and Cut and had it cut out tons of these little butterflies. There you can see the piles of the 2 different sizes, and I actually have a bunch of these left that I'm not going to use, so if anyone would like them, just let me know in the comments below. I'm not going to do any type of raffle or anything, just the first person who asks for them, I will send them out in the mail to you. So here I went ahead and stamped the sentiment, "You make me feel like I can fly," and I created 4 pencil lines going down the card, and I'm going to use that to line up 4 rows of these little butterflies. So I ended up doing a 1/2 inch in from each edge and then 1.5 inches in from each edge, and that gave me a pretty even 4 rows for these butterflies. So I'm just going to sporadically choose lots of different colors and mix in the different sizes, and I'll line these up here along those lines. Next, I'm going to use some multi-matte medium and my quick stick tool to pick those up as carefully as I can to keep them in order. And I'm just putting 1 dot of multi-matte medium in the center. I want to eventually go lift up those wings, so I want it to stick nice and tight, but only in the very center of the butterfly. For the inside of the card, I'm using my trusty Nina panel trimmed to 4 by 5 1/4, and I've again used intense black ink to stamp the sentiment, "I adore you." Then I'm going to grab 3 more of these little butterflies, and I will just place those around the sentiment. I'll go ahead then and attach that on the inside of my card base. And then I'm going to go through and individually just peel up the little wings on those butterflies. And this took a little bit of time, and I was trying really hard not to bend them, to just sort of curl them. But in the end, I got some really great dimension. I was really happy with how this turned out. And that will complete card number 2. For card number 3, I'm going to start out using this craft paper. This is not a cardstock, or if it is, it's a very light cardstock that I picked up at Michael's. So it's got a nice, it's a different craft color. It's a little bit darker than Nina Storm, but it is also a little bit flimsier than Nina Storm, but that's okay because I'm going to back it with some foam tape. So this is a 3-inch circle. I used my Sizzix circle dies to cut this out. And now I've taken that smaller butterfly and I'm going to stamp that using some Versamark ink. I went ahead then and I heat embossed that with Simon Says Stamp Fine Detail White Embossing Powder. And then I wanted to take this Thinking of You sentiment and sort of curve it. So I'm putting that in place, and I did do a little bit of stamp surgery there and cut the 2 lines apart. And I've placed that sort of in the center, and I've left this whole process in just to show you it kind of takes a while, but you just curve it a little bit and then a little bit more, and then, you know, just sort of until you get it to the right curve to match your circle. And then once I'm happy with the thinking, I will go ahead and move to the bottom line. So that "of you" sentiment is pretty short. It was hard to get any kind of a curve on it, but I did want to give it just a slight curve on either edge so that it would look like it was going around the circle and match the top portion. And then once I'm happy with that, I'll go ahead and again stamp that with Versamark ink and heat emboss that with Simon Says Stamp Fine Detail White Embossing Powder. So here, before I place down my papers on the card base, I wanted to give that a little bit of shimmer using the foil that came in the kit. I've grabbed some of my 1/4 inch Scor-Tape and I'm going to place that along the folded edge of my card base. And then I'll place that foil on top of it, and I am going to press down really well on that to make sure it's nice and stuck. And then when I pull the foil away, the shiny will still be left on the card base. I'm going to use some of this white and rainbow striped paper to cover the majority of my card base. I'm just adding some ATG to the back of that, and then I'm going to place that down to cover just about half of that foiled section there. Then I'll go ahead and trim off the excess. And then I also have this piece of green paper which measures just about 2 inches. I've added some foam tape behind that, and I'm going to place that just off to the side slightly. I wanted to leave that red stripe for a little bit of extra interest on the front. And then at this point I put down my circle and I thought it needed something extra. So I had already put that foam tape down. What I ended up doing was I took my pokey tool that I use to remove die cuts when they're stuck inside the dies, and I just slid that underneath the edge of the foam tape and just rolled that to try and pull that away from the paper. And it doesn't always work, but thankfully this time it did. And I was able to take some of that twine that I feel like I've been using on everything for the past couple of weeks, and I just wrapped that around a few times and then tied it into a bow. And you will see that I did use some Prismacolor colored pencils to color in that butterfly. I left out the coloring because it's such a small image that you really couldn't see much of it anyways, because my hand was in the way whenever I went to color the next thing. But I will have all of the colors that I used listed for you on my blog post. And then here I'm taking my Signo Uniball white gel pen, and I'm just going to go around and add some stitching along the outer edge of that circle. For my inside panel, I'm going to stamp the sentiment "Have a Beautiful Day," and I'm using the Distress Oxide Twisted Citron. And then I trimmed off a piece of this rainbow paper that measures just about 1/2 inch, and I'll attach that using my ATG gun at the bottom of the panel. I'll go ahead and add that on the inside of my card base, and that will complete card number 3. So I kept card number 4 really simple. I know that this stamp set came with a ton of butterflies, but I had this butterfly die that is actually also from Simon Says Stamp. It's called the Paulina butterfly. And I ran that through my die cut machine with some just leftover Nina Solar White cardstock. And then I wanted to let this rainbow paper shine. I think it was probably my favorite from the kit, although it's hard for me to choose from all those rainbows. But it's so beautiful and saturated, I just wanted to let it shine. So I took it there and placed that to cover the whole front of my cardstock. And then I'm going to attach this butterfly using my ATG gun. Next, I grabbed the sentiment "You Are Simply the Best," and I'm going to stamp that using the Seedless Preserves Distress Oxide ink. For the inside of the card, I'm again using a Nina panel trimmed to 4x5 1/4, and I'll stamp the sentiment "I Adore You," again using that Seedless Preserve Distress Oxide ink. Then to finish that off, I had an extra strip of that rainbow paper, and since I had more of the red on the front of the cardstock, I used the purple end, and I'm just attaching that along the side there. I'll place that on the inside of the card base, and that will complete card number 4. For card number 5, I'm going to use this rainbow paper that it almost looks like it's watercolored. This was probably my second favorite paper in the kit. And I'm again going to take my ATG gun and I'm going to place that on top of the card base to cover the whole card front. I trimmed off that excess, and then I'm gonna stamp the sentiment, "You make me feel like I can fly." And I just lined those up to try and fit sort of each line into a different color of the wash that goes across that. I'm again using my Simon Says Stamp Intense Black ink. And then I took 3 of the butterflies, and I wanted to kind of get maybe a stained glass sort of look. So I'm just going to stamp those again using Intense Black ink. I'm lining them up just along the side there, and then I'm going to let the color of that rainbow just sort of shine through from underneath the black stamping. For the inside of the card, I wanted to kind of mimic the front, and I had this leftover piece that I had trimmed off of the side. So I'm going to place this towards the top of my, I have it flipped upside down just to make it easier for me, but that's actually going to be the top of my inside panel. And I'm just lining that up so I had about roughly the same amount of purple as I did of red on either end of that. And then I lined up the sentiment, "Have a beautiful day," so that the word beautiful would be stamped on top of that rainbow. I'm gonna take my ATG gun and I'll place the panel on the inside of the card base. And then for a final touch, I went and grabbed my Nuvo drops. This color is Ebony Black, and I just created a few dots on either side all around those butterflies. And that will complete card number 5. Here is a quick look back at all of the cards from today. Additional photos as well as a full list of supplies can be found at my blog post, linked in the description below. If you enjoyed the video, please leave me a comment or a thumbs up and subscribe for more. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.